Chapter 251. Yunsong Tea Plant in Pyeongtaek. Production vehicles moved along the conveyor belt, and workers assembled parts with quick hand movements. Bang Moo-hyuk and Jo Min-suk worked on the conveyor belt, facing each other on the right and left. They both did almost the same thing. The difference is that Bang Moo-hyuk assembles the right wheel, and Jo Min-suk assembles the left wheel. However, the wage difference between the two was more than 4 times. The reason is that the two are different. Bang Moo-hyuk is a full-time employee of Unsung-cha. On the other hand, Jo Min-suk is a dispatched worker. Although he works at the Unsung tea plant, he belongs to a dispatch company, not to Unsung Motors. Salary was also received from the dispatching company. Bang Moo-hyuk's annual salary was well over 100 million won, but Jo Min-suk's annual salary was less than 30 million won. After paying the commission to the dispatching company, the actual amount of money in hand is a little over 2 million won per month. Jo Min-suk smiled bitterly. This is the difference between regular and non-regular workers. Although it is a wage that cannot be said to be high, people are lining up to work even with this money. Compared to my friends who haven't found a job yet, just being here right now can be called lucky. When it was time for a break, Jo Min-suk came out and smoked in the smoking room. As he sat down and wiped his sweat, Bang Moo-hyuk approached him and offered him a can of coffee. "Drink this one." "Yes. Thank you." Jo Min-suk politely accepted it with both hands. Bang Moo-hyuk sat down next to him and smoked a cigarette. "Is it very difficult? An automobile factory is not an easy place." "Oh yes. Isn't automation pretty good for that kind of thing? Before I came here I went to several factories. Of course, it's not that it's not difficult, but it's nothing compared to a small and medium-sized business. At least, factories of large corporations strictly observe the legally set break times. Next week I will get my first paycheck. What are you going to do when you receive it?" "I still have a lot of student loans left. You have to pay it back first." "Oh, that's right. What college did you say you went to?" "I graduated from Chongsang University." Chongsang University is a regional university located in Cheongbuk. After all, if you graduated from a prestigious university, you wouldn't be working like this with this salary. Bang Moo-hyuk was taken aback at those words. My son also attends Chongsangdi. Now that I see it, it was my son's senior." "How long have you been graduating?" "It's 3 years now." "Right. My son will also be graduating next year." As Jo Min-suk knows, Unsung-cha's full-time employees can receive support for their children's school expenses from the company. If the children do not go to college, they will give them in cash. Still, he probably won't have student loans. So, like anyone else, you won't be in debt as soon as you come out. At the end of the break, a union member came up to me and applauded. "Vagnatang, you know I work until 2 today, right? When the time comes, we will all shut down and withdraw." "Okay." Unlike regular workers who responded vigorously, Jo Min-suk and non-regular workers had a dark expression on their faces. Currently, at the Pyeongtaek plant, the first and second groups are in the process of a partial strike. Regular workers receive regular wages even if they strike, but non-regular workers do not. If you do not work 15 hours a week due to a prolonged strike, you will not be able to receive your weekly holiday pay. After the break was over, work started again. Jo Min-suk suddenly thought that his situation was like his tire. Engines and missions are repaired even if it costs money. However, if the tire wears out or punctures, it is enough to replace it. What will happen in the next 2 years? Should I switch to a full-time job or find a new job again? Bang Moo-hyuk, who works across the street, was also a worrier. He joined Unsung Motors when he was very young. At that time there was no concept of a full-time employee. Because once you join the company, you are always a full-time employee. During the International Monetary Fund (IMF), they survived the blades of restructuring and endured hardships during the financial crisis. There are less than 2 years left until retirement. Others said that he was afraid of retirement, but Bang Moo-hyuk was not so worried. He has a house he has bought, some money he has earned, and severance pay and pension after he retires. Even if this is not enough, it is enough for a couple to spend their old age. If there's only one concern, it's his son. The reality is that many young people who have graduated from prestigious universities are unemployed. Can a son who graduates from a local university find a decent job? It seemed that the face of Min-suk-jo on the opposite side and the face of his son overlapped. This time, Union Chairman Ju Song-moo should do well. After the work was over, the members gathered in one place. The union members handed out printed flyers. Now Unsung Motors is in such a bad situation that it is said that it is the biggest crisis since its founding. The media also expressed concerns about the silver car, and the politicians also requested a restraint on strikes. Conversely, when the company is difficult, it means that it is a golden opportunity to achieve what it wants by putting strong pressure on the management side. The management rejected the union's request, citing the decline in sales and operating profit, and the union went on a partial strike at 4 factories. These factories have production lines for small SUVs and mid-size cars, which are very popular. If a partial strike occurs in a situation where there is already a shortage of supplies, shipments will be delayed and consumers will be dissatisfied. From the union's point of view, this is a way to achieve maximum effect with minimum strikes. Shortly thereafter, Union Chairman Ju Song-moo arrived at the Pyeongtaek plant. He came right here after stopping by Ulsan factories, and he reported the progress of negotiations to his union members. The power of Union Chairman Eun Song-cha is no less than that of other executives. The benefits you receive are also significant. The union members elect the union chairman by voting, and the union chairman represents the union members and engages in negotiations with the management. After several challenges, Ju Song-moo took office as the union chairman this time. The union put forward a 7% increase in basic pay, a bonus of 30% of net profit, and an extension to the retirement age of 65 as conditions. If the union's demand is passed as it is, the average wage of Eun Sung-cha will eventually exceed 100 million won. However, there was a more important issue in this negotiation. Currently, there are not 1 or 2 members who are approaching full retirement age. It is only a few years before you can receive it if you need to increase your wages by a few percentage points. I go on strike and struggle every year, but my current job is satisfying enough. Everyone knows that it's hard to find a job like this anywhere you go. So they only want one thing. He wants to pass on this good job to his children. For this reason, the union put in a clause in the request that, if a person with more than 15 years of service retires, at least one of their children will be hired first. Ju Song-moo, chairman of the union, shouted loudly in front of the union members. This time, no matter what happens, I will definitely pass the priority hiring plan for the children of union members. Wow! At this, the members all applauded and shouted in unison. Similar provisions still exist. The provision stipulates that if a union member dies as a result of an industrial accident, one member of the family is hired. In fact, there are cases where they were hired as such, but how many of them die from industrial accidents in factories of large corporations? Bang Moo-hyuk raised his hand and shouted. Han Min-koo is also passing the chairmanship to his son, so why can't we do that? Other union members also agreed. If you have sacrificed for the company for over 10 years, hiring your child is natural. Is it wrong to continue working at Yunsong-cha? Every other big company is doing it too. As long as the request is passed, one of the union members' children can automatically become an employee of Unsung Motors, unless there is a specific reason for disqualification. There is nothing better than this in today's job crisis. It is unfortunate but unavoidable for a child of another household to work as a non-regular worker. But I have to do everything I can to stop my children from living like that. Isn't it the same for everyone to worry about their children? Unfortunately, public opinion was not very good. Since it's a hereditary job, the modern version of Yumseogeni is coming out. Everyone knows that Kang Jin-hoo's remarks a while ago became a problem. At the hearing, OTK company CEO Kang Jin-hoo pointed out that the wages of Unsung tea producers are too high. For a while, public opinion was turbulent. The Yunsong-cha union responded by issuing a rebuttal statement and distributing promotional materials to the media, but the criticism did not easily subside. All members expressed their dissatisfaction. No, after Kang Jin-hoo, what's wrong with that guy? I'm going to take good care of my own company. Why don't you get involved in someone else's company? Let go of your boat? The green is the same color and he's also a manager, so he's on the side of the chaebol. The one who never worked in a factory. Even as a union, it is impossible not to care about public opinion. So I thought I'd end the deal as soon as possible before it gets any worse. What do you mean? I remembered Yeji I saw earlier. It's good to work with Unsung-cha. Taekyu had an embarrassed expression on his face. I wish I could help you once in the case of an airbag crisis. What else do you want me to do? That's it. Our house was ruined because of Yunsong. And his father also died from it. Han Min-ku, who was the chairman at the time, has already retired. And before his resignation, he reprimanded all the employees involved in the work and banned him from stealing the technology of his subcontractors. It must have meant that he had to take a good look at Yunsong Cha, as he would carry all the faults with him. What do you mean? I remembered Yeji I saw earlier. It's good to work with Yunsong Cha. Taekyu had an embarrassed expression on his face. I wish I could help you once in the case of an airbag crisis. What else do you want me to do? That's it. Our house was ruined because of Yunsong. And his father also died from it. Han Min-ku, who was the chairman at the time, has already retired. And before his resignation, he reprimanded all the employees involved in the work and banned him from stealing the technology of his subcontractors. It must have meant that he had to take a good look at Yunsong Cha, as he would carry all the faults with him. If that happens, the already difficult domestic manufacturing industry will completely collapse. Well, if it really breaks down, I'll find a way somehow, but until then I'll have to endure a lot of pain. About half of the reason Yunsong Cha is in the current situation is because of me. What should I do? I had a video conference with the Keris executives. The agenda for the meeting was none other than China. After the rise of Keris, the trend of the automobile market is changing rapidly. And Chinese companies moved quickly. In China, auto, electronics, and battery makers have come together to form an auto alliance agreement. What is the main axis? It's Zhou. Zhou is the largest automaker in China. Using the huge capital it had earned through domestic consumption, it acquired Volvo, only the passenger car sector. The commercial vehicle sector is still part of the Volvo Group, and recently became the largest shareholder by taking a 10% stake in Mercedes-Benz. In China, together with Baidu and Dada Chuxing, it is taking the lead in developing autonomous driving technology. Before the meeting, I took a look at the stake in Zhou Holdings, the holding company of Zhou. It is an open secret that the Chinese government is behind Zhou. In fact, it can be seen as a Chinese state-owned company. Well, what Chinese businessmen don't? It is. China is a socialist system, and all businesses are basically obligated to follow the policies of the state. The reason for signing the agreement is, of course, for cooperation in the field of future cars. The US, Europe, and Japan are already making similar moves. There is one more thing that worries me. What? Daryl said cautiously. It is said that a joint venture may take over Yunsong Motors' Chinese subsidiary. Are you going to Beijing? Do they have enough money? If necessary, we can provide it anywhere. For example, the Chinese government. Until a few years ago, Chinese cars were cheap cars. But now, Chinese automakers are also focusing on high-end strategies, moving away from low-price and low-quality products. What will happen if Yunsong's Chinese plant is taken over? I said, muttering. There is no law saying that this should not look like a Blue Dragon T. The Blue Dragon, which was famous as a famous SUV, suffered a major crisis during the IMF crisis. After that, it did not recover and was eventually sold to Shanghai Motors in China. At the time of the acquisition, Shanghai Motors made a firm promise to revive the Blue Dragon car by investing a large amount of money to develop and launch a new car. However, after the acquisition, the words changed. Rather than investing, they rushed to take away the technological prowess of the Blue Dragon. In the end, all the technology was stolen, the development team and other important personnel were transferred to another corporation, and then sold again when the use value was lost. Meanwhile, sales and profits plummeted and many workers lost their jobs. It would be better to say that it was acquired with the intention of robbing it altogether. It would be impossible for a Chinese company to acquire Yunsong Motor as a whole, but taking over only a Chinese subsidiary is a possible scenario. Although it is difficult in Korea for various reasons, Yunsong's technological prowess is world-class. Benz, BMW, Toyota, etc., which have a superior technological edge over Yunsong Motors, may not feel the need to acquire them, but it will be worth salivating from the perspective of Chinese automakers. The Silver Star situation isn't quite that serious yet, and the CEO and management won't make that stupid decision, but shareholders may think differently. The company is in a difficult situation and shareholders want to liquidate the poor overseas business. It is impossible to oppose it blindly. In fact, despite many bad examples, many companies have been sold to China. A few months ago, even Kumho Tire passed to China's triple star. There is a strong possibility of being robbed this time, but there was no choice but to take over the Chinese company. I told Daryl, "Watch the situation and let us know if you really see any signs of that." Okay. After the video conference was over, the screen went off. I put down the material I was holding and leaned back on my chair thinking. Experts cited this year as a singularity. From this year on, there will be major changes in politics, society and the economy in general. In fact, change has been around for a long time and has been prepared for. Now it is only showing up on the surface. This is also true of the automobile market. Karis introduced the self-driving car, and the OTK Research Institute developed the OTK battery, sparking a change. Just as other companies flocked to Google's Andromeda camp after the release of iPhone, companies that were developing future cars came together. In the United States, Nikola, Evair, NPL, Google, GM, Ford, etc., Toyota, Honda, SFT Bank, etc. in Japan, and Daimler, BMW, Volkswagen Group and PAS Group in Europe formed alliances. Take-You asked after hearing the explanation. Are we the only ones being bullied? Well, we are also holding hands with Samsung Electronics and Samsung SB. Karis' share of the market is still small. Nevertheless, they are being held back by companies. The Stone Age did not end when stones fell. When a new technology emerges, the existing technology naturally goes down the road. When the N-phone was released, sales were only a few % of the total cell phone sales. But within just a few years, smartphones overtook feature phones and took over the market. Could it be that Nokia failed to make a good feature phone? The opposite is true. It was made better than any other company and went bankrupt. So, even when other companies were all eager to develop smartphones, they did their best to make feature phones. Even though bronze and iron tools appeared, they were making bigger and better stone axes. Currently, automobiles are in the process of transitioning to the next era. In the process, companies that adapt will enter a new era, but those that do not will naturally perish. That's why everyone is desperately moving in order to survive. We came home from work. Dinner at Chinese restaurant? That's right. At this point, I think I might be able to buy a Chinese restaurant. I changed into comfortable clothes and sat on the sofa. I sighed while drinking a can of beer and the food arrived. Thank you for always using us. I added dumplings as a service. Oh, thank you. Take-You set the food on the table and unwrapped the wrapping. How is your sister? I went to the hospital with Henry yesterday and he said there was no problem. Hyunju's older sister was noticeably full. Now instead of high-waisted skirts, they wear wide dresses. I was still working but I didn't work overtime and left work on time. According to Ellie, Golden Gate employees are happy when the branch manager leaves early. Henry rushed to the building next door when it was time to leave. These days his expression is completely blank. I'm dying like this but I don't know how I've endured it. When are you moving? Next Saturday. Take the time off that day. We have to go together and move things. 66. I wonder if we can just buy a moving company, but maybe it's our virtue to help each other on the day of moving? By the way, I think Hyunju Nuna and Henry will really live together. Looking at this, it seems that there is a real relationship. I turned on the TV to watch the news. At the same time, the news about the Yunseonka strike was coming out. The union is currently on a partial strike and has declared that it will go on strike if the demand is not met by the next round of negotiations. This is the first collective bargaining agreement since Chon Young-lee took office as chairman. And the same goes for union leaders. It seems that both sides do not want to be pushed into a battle of flags. The biggest issue in this collective bargaining agreement is the issue of hiring union members' children first. The media also paid attention to it. Take-You asked as if he didn't understand. How in the world can you come up with the amazing idea of employment inheritance? How is this different from inheriting titles from nobles? That's why it's called aristocratic union? Although it is a framing created by the conservative media, it can be considered appropriate for this issue. The union argued that it was a reasonable compensation for the sacrifices they had made for the company. It sounds plausible at first glance, but in hindsight it makes no sense. According to this logic, what kind of people would be convinced that the state will hire the children of civil servants who have worked for more than 15 years first? Currently, youth unemployment in Korea is a serious situation, and in many cases the employment competition ratio of large corporations exceeds 100 to 1. Naturally, It is difficult for general applicants to surpass the children of union members in the job competition. Ultimately, this is an act that deprives other job seekers of opportunities. Taeyong continued to grumble. If the parents are employees of a large company, the children will also go to a large company, and if the parents are employees of a small business, the children will have to work for a small business for the rest of their lives. Are your parents also talented? I sighed inwardly. When did this country become like this? However, this is not the case only in Unsung cars. There are not one or two large corporations with similar provisions in the face of union pressure. The Unsung Cha Union is also taking it as an example and insisting that they do the same. As a result, large corporations are reluctant to build factories in Korea, and quality jobs are gradually disappearing. As it becomes difficult for young people to find employment, unions are increasingly clinging to hereditary employment. Unsung car sales are going down right now. Is it okay to go on strike like that? Of course not. I'm glad the Karis Union isn't like that. In the past, the American Automobile Union was also notoriously strong. However, the Big Three collapsed due to the financial crisis and large-scale restructuring followed. Instead of providing public funds, the U.S. government demanded concessions from both companies and unions. It was at this time that American workers realized that if the company collapsed, their jobs would also be lost. Since then, American auto workers have taken a different path. The American Auto Workers Union held a collective wage agreement every 4 years and refrained from strikes as much as possible. It was reborn as a union for coexistence, not a union for struggle. However, even at that time, the Korean Automobile Workers Union went even more rigid. The reason is that there was a strong belief that the company would not go bankrupt even if this was done. Meanwhile, the average wage of regular workers has risen to nearly 100 million won. 100 million is a good word, but if you add various welfare benefits to this, the burden on the company will be much greater. It is certainly a good thing that workers get a high salary. However, if it is an industry with a low labor cost and high added value such as semiconductors, it is inevitably difficult for the general manufacturing industry to continue to adopt this high-cost structure. It's less of a problem when things are going well, but problems arise as soon as sales go down. It is easy to raise the labor cost, but it is impossible to lower it. If you think about it, it's a funny situation. But there are a lot of people in Korea who want to work even on an annual salary of 40 million won. Companies go abroad for expensive labor costs. In addition, instead of hiring regular workers to meet labor costs, only non-regular workers are continuously increasing. As a result, jobs are not increasing in Korea, and the jobs that do exist are polarized. Ultimately, this problem has to be resolved, and companies, unions, governments, no one is touching it. While I was thinking about not eating, Taekyu stared at me. What? Why do you look like that? Aren't you trying to help? No way. It's our house. Why are you mad? Is it true that Yeji told us to cooperate? It feels like that. Taeyong continued to ask. If it's like that, it's like that. If it's not, it's not. What exactly was the foresight? That's... When Taekyu heard my story, he was startled. What? Is that real? Huh. I remembered the wisdom I saw. There are few sectors where economies of scale play as great as automobiles. Experts predicted that the automobile market would be reorganized with a few companies that survived the competition. Although it is not necessarily the words of experts, even now, mergers and affiliations are actively taking place among companies. GM has Chevrolet, Cadillac, GMC, Buick, GM Korea, BMW Group has Mini and Rolls-Royce, and Volkswagen Group has Skoda, Audi, Porsche, Bentley and Lamborghini as affiliates. Just as GM acquired Daewoo Motors and Renault acquired Susong Motors, there is no law prohibiting the acquisition of other automakers in the process of Karis becoming a global company. Are you saying that one of them is Yunsong Cha? I will. What Yeji shows is the future. I know the result, but how does it happen? In order to do that, doesn't Unsung Cha need to collapse first? Then the Chinese side will reach out before us. What would you do if you had to take over a company that went bankrupt and lost its technology as an affiliate? Taekyu thought for a moment and then asked. What if I help out for nothing and the future changes? What if Unsung Cha succeeds in its recovery without going bankrupt? That's the problem. Every time I see Yeji, I think the same thing every time. Is the future fixed or can it be changed? Did the future I see even predict my future actions? What will happen if you forcefully make your foresight wrong? I'll have to think more deeply about this part, but anyway, I've never been wrong about my foresight. So, can I trust you again? As Chairman Im Jin-yong said, it is also true that production bases in the Asian market are needed. China is betting its life and death on the development of future cars at the government level. And in Japan too, traditional powerhouses such as Toyota and Honda will not give up the market easily. At this point, the most important thing to consider is whether it is beneficial to us or not. As long as the future doesn't change, it would be better to take over in as good a condition as possible. Taekyu muttered with his arms crossed. Is it going to be ours anyway? To be honest, I don't really want to get involved with Eun Cha. But he showed foresight and he just couldn't ignore it. Still, I have no intention of reaching out to my side. I don't know if I'd ask for help from the other side first. Still, I have no intention of reaching out to my side. I don't know if I'd ask for help from the other side first. But a few days later, I got a phone call from Chon Young-han. Hello, CEO Kong Jin-hoo. This is Chon Young-han of Yunseonka. Yes. Long time no see. If you have time, can I see you for a moment? I headed to the Japanese restaurant in the basement of the Salon Hotel with Taekyu. Chon Young-han, who had come first, got up and greeted us. See you after a long time. The first and last time we met was at the time of the ex-cop bidding. And this is our second meeting. In the meantime, things have changed a lot. While Keris has become a global company, Eun Cha is experiencing several difficulties. They are probably still under tremendous pressure from shareholders. One of the common problems of Korean chaebols is that they have weak management rights. Like other chaebols, the Chon Young-han family's stake is less than 5%. Trying to control the entire group with a small stake, all kinds of tricks, including circular shareholding, are likely to be mobilized. In a normal case, there seems to be no problem, but when the company's circumstances deteriorate or the stake relationship changes due to the succession of management rights, the vulnerability is exposed as it is. Minio Sashimi came up on the table. What did you say you wanted to see? He answered my question with a heavy expression on his face. I want to ask CEO Kong Jin-hoo for help. After all, I wouldn't have asked to meet just to eat sashimi. But Taekyu is already working hard with chopsticks. What kind of help specifically? I want to be supplied with OTK batteries. Large-sized batteries for vehicles have not yet been released. I heard that battery pack development is almost over. Why don't we start production at the Suwon plant of Seosong SB soon? You know. Some of the production lines have already been changed. Taekyu asked as he grabbed the sashimi and ate it. What about hydrogen cars? Chon Young-han smiled bitterly. In the meantime, the hydrogen car plan that Unsung Motors has been ambitiously pursuing has come to a halt. Hydrogen cars have clear advantages over electric vehicles in terms of charging time and mileage. So, the era of hydrogen cars may one day be ushered in. But no matter how good a skill is, it is useless if the timing is not right. What will that mean when the era of hydrogen cars comes after the downfall of Unsung Motors? Now, with the OTK battery, that possibility has disappeared, and automakers who have been standing in the hydrogen car camp have already withdrew. Instead of answering, I brought up something else. It seems to be fashionable these days to form an alliance here and there. Weren't there quite a few love calls? Although sales have plummeted, Unsung Motor is one of the top 5 automakers in the world. There must have been a lot of hand gestures here and there. But why did you have to come to me? It was not. But if we have to hold hands, wouldn't it be better to join hands with the number 1 company? Perhaps if I decline, either way will go hand in hand. Aren't we going to solve the strike first? Chon Young-han nodded his head. We will come to a conclusion soon. Although the company is in crisis, the union is pushing hard. And when the company comes out of the crisis, it will ask for more. Even if we get over it this year, the same thing will happen again next year. Compared to other manufacturing industries, the wages of Yonsong tea producers are particularly high. This is also true compared to competitors such as GM, BMW, and Toyota. How the hell did Unsung Car come to have such a high cost structure? First of all, because it was profitable. The company is not stupid. As the wage of regular workers increased, fewer regular workers were hired as much as possible, and the positions were filled with non-regular workers. In addition, the company responded by not building any more factories in Korea and continuously increasing its overseas factories. After all, the union only needs to raise the wages of regular workers, Because there is no reason to take care of non-regular workers who are not union members. The bigger reason is the backlash from shareholders. What shareholder would stand still to see stocks plummet due to a strike? Chan Young-han asked with her eyes bright. Is there any good way? I do not know. Even if the damage is huge right now, we need to solve it this time. After meeting Chan Young-han, we went straight to Golden Gate. Hyunju's older sister was drinking coffee while working. Taekyu asked surprised. Can I have coffee, sister? It's decaf. Is decaf okay? About 1 or 2 cups a day. Hyunju Nuna stopped what she was doing and got up. He didn't notice when he was sitting, but looking at it this way he can clearly see that his stomach is out. Where have you been? I met Chan Young-han. My sister was surprised by my words. Chairman Eun Sung-cha? What brings you here? I said I'd see you there. I briefly explained what we talked about earlier. I think we need to adjust the conditions a bit, but I think my sister should help me. Hyunju Nuna looked at me with a puzzled expression. You said you don't want to care about Eun Sung-cha. What kind of win did you have? That's because I saw the foreknowledge. Well, business is business. Chairman Im Jin-young had the same idea. Maybe we'll have it later. Taeyong nodded his head vigorously. That's right. From our side we will attach team leader Seo Sang-won and the team members. Please pack according to the other people and only give orders to Nuna. If it weren't for us, who would we trust? Hyunju Nuna smiled as if she couldn't help it. Whenever I tell you to take a break because you think of your baby, you've been working on it again. Most CEOs are reluctant to comment directly on labor management issues. This is because it can adversely affect negotiations. However, a day before the second round of negotiations, Chairman Chan Young-han personally appeared in front of the press and announced the company's position. Currently, Eun Sung-cha is facing various difficulties and is in the process of overcoming them. No further wage increase is possible due to poor management. Above all, it is absolutely unacceptable to stipulate that the employment of union members' children first is deprived of fair employment opportunities and may lead to deterioration of the employment structure. The management hopes to negotiate at a reasonable level with the union. As the remarks were made, the Yeonsang Tea Union fiercely protested, and negotiations broke down before they even sat down at the table. The union immediately voted in favor of the strike, which was passed by an overwhelming 92 cents. Ju Sung-moo, chairman of the union, shouted in an angry voice. Unless Chan Young-han, who has ignored the union's legitimate demands, comes and apologizes in person, there will be no withdrawal of the strike. A full-scale strike started and all conveyor belts in domestic factories stopped. Politicians unanimously called for the resumption of negotiations. However, the management did not back down, nor did the union. Concerned about the use of replacement workers, the union took over the factory. Nevertheless, the company did not take any action. No replacement manpower was put in, and no extreme measures such as factory closures were taken. A week passed like that. Even if the factory stops for one day, the company incurs a huge loss. The losses were already snowballing. When a finished car factory stops, all of the partner factories that supply to that company stop. It doesn't end here. The local commercial area where the factory is located is virtually dependent on Unsung Motors. All shops, including restaurants, are also closed. When even the exhibited cars were sold, there were no more cars to sell. Foreign factories were running well, so there were enough stocks, but according to the labor management agreement, these quantities cannot be brought into Korea. As the shipment was delayed, complaints from the contracted consumers erupted. There was no promise of when I would receive it. Tired of waiting, consumers canceled their contracts and looked for cars from other companies, or turned to used car parks. The used car market has experienced an unexpected boom. Used car dealers quickly raised the price of popular car models. Yunsung's crisis is a good opportunity for competitors to increase their market share in Korea. GM and Renault, which have factories in Korea, poured out quantities while operating their factories as much as possible, and imported car dealers tried to increase their imports by contacting the headquarters. Ju Sung-moo, chairman of the union, was puzzled. Even if we don't wave the white flag by now, it's only normal if we talk about having a conversation. Still, there is no movement on either side. He comforted his agitated members. If we wait a little bit, eventually the management will have no choice but to raise their hand. Just hold on a little longer and we will surely win. Although profits are not announced separately for each country, it is a well-known fact that Yunsung's profit margin is overwhelmingly higher in Korea than overseas. There is a reason why vehicle prices are high due to discrimination in domestic demand, but it is because the sales network and logistics are well established, and marketing expenses are reduced due to the high awareness and preference. However, as the strike was prolonged and domestic sales were virtually halted, the stock price, which had already bottomed out, plummeted again. Shareholders stood up. Institutional investors and minority shareholders alike criticized management. Things would have been better if Han Min-gu had been there. He is the one who drove the Korean economy and made Unsung Motors into a global company. However, Chon Young-han has not yet played a special role. The issue of an all-out strike broke out when the new CEO was skeptical of the management ability. Chon Young-han went to persuade the major shareholders to appease them. And I announced to the press about the future investment plan along with the OTK battery mass production plan. Keros is working with several companies including Susong Group to create a battery and electric vehicle production complex in Asia. We are currently reviewing several countries as candidates. Then the reporters quickly asked questions. Where are the potential candidates? Is Korea included among them? Are you not interested in investing in Korea? I just cut it off. The Korean automobile industry is too risky due to the high cost structure and frequent strikes. Unless you're an idiot, you wouldn't invest in Korea even if you see the current situation. What? Did you openly open the union again after the Gangjin? What are we going to do after Kongjin? What's wrong with the trade union? Even after Kongjin he got along with the chaebol and became the same. What are you talking about? It was Kongjin who helped the union of the mailing company and sent the president there. Read more at wuxiax.com. But why are you doing this to the Yunsong Tea Union? Are the union of the postal company and the union of Yunsong Cha? There is a big difference between commoners and nobles. Kang Jin-hoo is on the side of the management and is taking the lead in destroying the union. The Yunsong Tea Union will fight to the end for the benefit of all workers. Isn't it just for the benefit of the Yunsong Tea Union? Why do you bring other workers into your struggle? Don't you think about the death of workers from subcontractors because of your strike? The non-regular workers who used to work in factories are now starving. I just need to work with that salary. Isn't it too much to ask my children to join the company? If a child joins the company where the father worked for a long time, wouldn't he work with more love? I'm not asking you to hire me unconditionally, I'm asking you to hire me first if you are qualified. This is also beneficial to the company. Is this a word or bullshit? You're making a dog noise once in a while. So the union goes on strike because it is full of loyalty? Declare that you will strike from generation to generation. Don't you even think about sacrificing for the company for over 15 years? If anyone hears it, they'll think it's forced labor by dragging him from Unsung car and not paying a penny per month. I joined the company because I wanted to and I worked for a paycheck. What sacrifice? Han Min-gu also passed on the chairmanship to his child. So why are you swearing only at the union? What are we doing wrong? That's why the chaebols are swearing. You're being insulted because you're doing the same thing. Haha, according to the logic of the Yunsong Tea Union, the current president should be Park Si-hyung's son. Members of the National Assembly are also elected as proportional representatives of their children. Yes. Parliamentarians would think they sacrificed themselves for the country, but please do that. While looking at the internet, Taekyu tapped my shoulder and said, "Today the internet is overflowing with your swear words." This is why I don't see comments. At this point, I wonder if there is anyone in Korea who is as scornful as me. I feel like I'm buying something that's abusive for some reason. In my remarks, not only the Yunsong Tea Union but also the Metal Workers Union stood up. The Yunsong Tea Union is under the Metal Workers Union, not an independent union. The Metallurgical Union issued a statement calling for an end to union-destroying acts, and heralded a rally in Tokyo. Still, there were no cases like the Parents' Union, so I received an official permission to protest. The physical of the workers who have worked in factories for more than 10 years should not be taken lightly. If you watch the video of the clash with the police officers in their 20s are also falling out. Fortunately, unlike in the past, such physical collisions are rare these days. Can I protest in front of the company? Korea is a country with freedom of assembly and demonstration. I respect this again. But apart from that, they say they are protesting in front of the company, but it is impossible to stand still. I gave instructions to the staff. From tomorrow until the end of the protests, everyone should not go to work and work from home. It's been 10 days since the all-out strike. As the strike was prolonged, the unions were also feeling great pressure. According to the principle of no work, no pay, no wages are paid during the strike period. For this reason, Unsung Cha's union held a new concept circular strike last year and the year before to minimize wage loss. Each part producer takes turns strikes for 2 or 3 hours. Due to the nature of the conveyor belt, even if one process is stopped, subsequent processes are impossible. Some workers just take turns going on partial strikes, while others play automatically. In this way, the strike effect can be maximized with the minimum wage loss. Even with such a good method, the reason for choosing the all-out strike is to put maximum pressure on the management side. As everyone knows that the situation is not good anyway, I was thinking of ending the negotiation quickly. If only the hiring of children first is resolved, there is a willingness to make sufficient concessions in regards to wage increases and performance pay. Union Chairman Ju Sung-moo spearheaded the strike and assured that the management would come to the negotiating table within 3 days. However, to this day the company has not moved. Partners complained of extreme difficulties. Tier 1 and Tier 2 vendors of a certain size struggled with their teeth, but the subcontractors screamed. As the situation of the workers of the subcontractors became known, public opinion about the strike worsened. In particular, there was an atmosphere where everyone criticized the hiring of children first as it was an employment inheritance. The Yeonsangcha Union refrained from responding in order not to escalate the issue, and attempted to contact the management under the water. I was being careful like this, but suddenly Kang Jin-hoo came up and criticized the union. It was like pouring oil into a house on fire. Kang Jin-hoo's remarks made the media and the internet noisy every day. Union Chairman Ju Sung-moo spearheaded the strike and assured that the management would come to the negotiating table within 3 days. However, to this day the company has not moved. Partners complained of extreme difficulties. Tier 1 and Tier 2 vendors of a certain size struggled with their teeth, but the subcontractors screamed. As the situation of the workers of the subcontractors became known, public opinion about the strike worsened. In particular, there was an atmosphere where everyone criticized the hiring of children first as it was an employment inheritance. The Yeonsangcha Union refrained from responding in order not to escalate the issue, and attempted to contact the management under the water. I was being careful like this, but suddenly Kang Jin-hoo came up and criticized the union. It was like pouring oil into a house on fire. Kang Jin-hoo's remarks made the media and the internet noisy every day. From the perspective of the Unsung-cha Union, it was just absurd. The members shouted in exasperated voices. Why does this guy keep hanging on to other people's ancestral tables? What do you think Ji knows? Who the hell is this kid on? Kang Jin-hoo and Unsung-cha's bad relationship is well known in the world. Are you blaming the union for that? It is now impossible not to respond. The Yeonsangcha Union decided to hold a demonstration in Tokyo in front of the OTK company headquarters together with the Metallurgical Union. Let's go to punish Kang Jin-hoo, who looks down on the union. Let's show our strength. Right. However, when the day of the protest came, Kang Jin-hoo shut down the company altogether. Ju Sung-moo, chairman of the labor union, could not contain his absurdity. When a protest takes place in front of the headquarters, the president often does not go to work. But emptying the company entirely is unprecedented. What is this? Is it a new concept of Bluefield tactics? In this way, if you say you are going to protest, you are only shouting in front of an empty house. However, I finished all the preparations and made an announcement to the press, but it is impossible not to do it. On the day of the protest, thousands of workers from the Metal Labor Union gathered in front of the OTK company headquarters and around Gangnam Station. Ju Sung-moo, chairman of the union, shouted loudly in front of the closed building and the lights out. I condemn Kang Jin-hoo for trampling on workers' rights and taking the lead in destroying the union. I condemn it. Apologize to workers across the country after Kang Jin-hoo. Apologize. We watched the protests on TV in the living room. Taeyong said with a surprised expression. Wow. A lot of people have gathered. Flags with the words "Where Union, Where Branch" flew vigorously, and union members with red headbands clasped their fists and shouted loudly. The guards surrounded the area and controlled the streets. That guy just insulted you. Looking at the shape of his mouth, it seems like the color of the bread was different after the earthquake. Good thing you didn't go to work. Since it was posted because of me, most of the remarks were criticisms of me. There seems to be a bit of swearing here and there. I've been swearing a lot, so I'm not even that impressed. Take you looked out his window. Why don't you come to the front of the house? Okay. Residential areas do not have protest permits. Protests took place not only in OTK Company but also in front of Unsung Motors headquarters. The weekend, a large-scale rally hosted by the KCTU will be held in Gwangwamun. Don't. I go outside for nothing, just stay at home quietly. Senior Sanjiop said while eating pizza next to him. After all, pizza is pizza. Once you try it, you won't be able to eat another pizza. Not long ago, Pizza opened in Ceylon State in Yeoksamdong. Thanks to this, I was able to order it in Gangnam. The management of Pizza is entirely left up to the Ceylon Hotel. The domestic pizza market is less than half that of chicken. On the other hand, however, it can be seen that the growth potential is large. President Sumi Lim focused on building a premium image rather than forcibly increasing the number of branches. That's why we set up our head office at the Ceylon Hotel in Namsan. Pizza costs a lot of initial investment, but after that, labor costs can be drastically reduced. And the saved labor costs are invested in ingredients to make healthy and delicious pizza. Thanks to this, the market response is very good and it is selling very hotly. As soon as the Gangnam branch opened, there was a long line, and delivery reservations were so popular that they were all closed within 30 minutes of opening. I picked up the pizza and turned my head to the side. Why have you been here since noon? I came to play because my company representative told me not to go to work. I told you to work from home, I didn't give you a vacation. Okay? When I asked Ki Hong to play a game of billiards earlier, he said that he and Hyunjong were going to play at Nami Island. Is this why companies don't let people work from home? Taekyu said while lying on the sofa. I'm bored because I don't go to work. You're bored even when you go to work. The employees are probably all enjoying the leisure time thanks to the Unsung Cha Union. I've worked hard all this time, so sometimes I have to have days like this. By the way, what were your thoughts on the Unsung Tea Union? As you can see, even that Park Si-hyung couldn't even touch them. Politicians have no choice but to be conscious of their votes. I don't know if it's an unknown small business union. It is risky to touch the unions of large corporations. The Unsung Cha Union belongs to the Metal Workers Union, and the Metal Workers Union belongs to the KCTU. Protests aren't the problem, but millions of votes can be lost if done wrong. For this reason, both conservatives and liberals are very passive about union issues. Are you really going to create an electric vehicle production complex in Asia? It is still in the conception stage, and we are talking with Chairman Im Jin-young. From the moment Karas decided to produce the car himself, the most important consideration was production. So, in addition to taking over the existing factories, they invested huge amounts of money to build new factories in Rust Belt. However, estimating future sales volume, it is difficult to wait for the North American and European markets even if all of the factories are in operation. In the long term, production bases should be continuously increased. If you had to build a factory in Asia, where would it be? China is excluded due to the establishment of a joint venture and concerns about technology leakage. In Japan, strong players such as Toyota and Honda are holding out, and labor costs are not too high in this country. There are also Thailand and Vietnam. The electric vehicle infrastructure there is worse than ours. The domestic market should also be considered. I handed the material on the table to Sanjiop Sr. It was made by the Seosong Economic Research Institute and is a comparative analysis of factories in Asian countries. If only labor costs are considered, it is normal for all factories in the world to be located in China, Africa, and Southeast Asia. However, there are also numerous factories in the United States and Western Europe, where labor costs are high. This is because, besides the labor cost, various other conditions are at work. Senior Sanjiop looked at the data and said, Korea looks the best. It is true if we consider administration, logistics, infrastructure, government support, and FTAs with countries. Sanjiop Senpai nodded her head at my words. Even if Ronald revises the Korea-US FTA and raises import tariffs on Korean automobiles, It will have nothing to do with Karis. After all, the cars sold in the United States are all made in the United States. I kept talking while eating pizza. There are many partners with high levels of education, hard work, and excellent technology. Most of all, Seosung SB and OTK Research Institute are both in Korea. Are high wages and frequent strikes a problem? If only that can be solved. There is no law against the establishment of a new automobile factory in Korea. It's been about 20 years. And of course I'll do it. Silver car. I'm thinking. It's a pity that it's a silver charge, not us. If we're going to hold hands, we should get as many things as we can. Is there any way to solve the problem? Look at this. I presented another material and Sanjiop Sr. looked at it. Did you make it yourself? Is it possible? I'm not a scholar who won any Nobel Prize in economics. But don't worry. There are many people smarter than me in the world, and if you need to, you can borrow their heads. Isn't there a scholar or professor to do this? As you know, the Korean manufacturing industry is at risk if it goes like this. Korea has grown at such a rapid pace that the word miracle on the Han River does not go unnoticed. In particular, the economic growth from the late 1980s to the mid-1990s was phenomenal. The side effect of rapid growth is the gap between the rich and the poor. But in Korea, the gap between the rich and the poor has narrowed and the middle class has increased. It was the golden age of the Korean economy. The reason this was possible is that Korea has grown mainly in the manufacturing industry. Factories were constantly running and jobs were plentiful. The manufacturing industry is still the backbone of the Korean economy. Otherwise, it may not have been able to overcome the IMF crisis and financial crisis. I think the same. The US is reshoring. As factories that went abroad return to their home countries, large Korean companies are only building factories abroad. Only then will there be neither porridge nor rice. But if you say one word, you get up like that. If you do something like this, will the two major trade unions stand still? I laughed bitterly. Otherwise, tens of thousands of jobs will go to other countries. Sanjiop Sr. nodded his head. Actually, there aren't a few countries that would welcome the establishment of a factory. The Yunseonka strike has already been over for a fortnight. Considering the domestic market share of Unsung Motors, in fact, the entire Korean automobile industry had come to a standstill. It was not so great to say that it was a reflective profit from other domestic companies. This is because production is limited. The supplier was on the verge of collapsing and the local economy faltered. The opposition and opposition parties with one voice called for quick labor management negotiations. Lawmakers with factories in the constituency went down to the area to meet the residents or visit Yunseong to assess. Union Chairman Ju Song-moo insisted that there would be no dialogue without an apology from Chairman Han Chan-young, and the management did not express any particular position. The share price of Unsung Motor Group continued to decline. The market cap, which once exceeded 200 trillion won, has now shrunk to less than 100 trillion won. In the business rankings after SSK Group, CL Group also fell to 4th place. If you look at the silver car alone, the current market cap is only 46 trillion won. On the other hand, the Karis, which Unsung sold at a bargain price, is valued at over $200 billion even though it is an unlisted company. This will only make shareholders angry. OTK Company and Golden Gate quietly started to buy Unsung Motor stock. Hyunju's sister formed a negotiation team and secretly contacted Unsung to negotiate various conditions. Meanwhile, I also met with Chairman Im Jin-yong and experts, and gradually materialized the investment plan. Among those experts were professors from Korea University. I talked to Professor Myung-jun Kim on the phone after a long time. The whole country is making noise again. Are you really planning to invest in Korea? If only I had money. Ha! When I saw the money being revealed, I became a real manager. Thanks to the professor, I learned well. So, why did you contact me this time? I would like to meet with the head of the Department of Economics. I have a question for you because of your investment. Professor Semyoung Jang. Professor Semyoung Jang served as a professor at the University of Cambridge in England when he was young, and during this time his economics book became a box office hit and gained worldwide fame. After that, he returned to Korea University to teach. Yes. Would it be okay? Professor Myung-jun Kim gladly answered. Sure. Anyway, Professor Jang also seemed to want to meet him once. It went well. Taekyu and I were going to go together, but Hyunju Nuna, who heard about it, also said to go together. Henry then quickly followed up, saying he would drive himself. I will do it. Anyone who sees it seems to be trying to train Hyunju Nuna. We waited on the first floor for my sister to come down. Henry, who was tying his collar and hair with his hands, smiled shyly when I looked at him. I said with a smile, I'm really glad that the two of you are doing well. It's all thanks to Jinhu and Taikyu. What have we done? In the meantime, you've said many times that you're going to help, but you haven't really done anything, haven't you? No. If I hadn't invited you to the opening party of the Salon Hotel that day, this wouldn't have happened. Well, it all happened that night. If it wasn't, it might have taken me a while to open up my sister's heart. Taeyong nodded his head. Well then, it's all thanks to us that the two of us did well, isn't that right, buddy? What? Thank you for thinking that way. While we were talking, Hyunju Nuna came down. Henry sat in the driver's seat, Taekyu in the passenger seat, and Hyunju and I in the back seat. To Taekyu's question of why are you going together, the older sister answered. I heard that Professor Jang Samyung became the head of the department last year, but I couldn't even visit him. I would like to take this opportunity to meet and greet you. Oh right. It must be the professor who taught me. You can call me a teacher. Hyunju's older sister, she's a business major at a Korean university, so she's obviously familiar with. I wanted to listen to the professor's lecture, but the competition for registration was no joke. The lectures are quite interesting. Please listen to it when you return to school later. Well, it's easy to understand even for the general public. Anyway, can I go back to school? Said Henry. Professor Semyong Jang, I know. I was very impressed with the book that analyzed the British disease. He is a famous economist not only in Korea but also in the world. If he works in the financial world, he can't know his name. From Grave to Cradle? Yes. As you can see from the title, it is a parody of From Cradle to Grave. Professor Semyong Jang's fame came from a book he published while he was writing a dissertation analyzing the British economy. Since the 1960s, the UK faces a serious crisis as costs increase and labour productivity and product competitiveness decline. When they tried to freeze wages or cut costs, workers went on strike everywhere. In Europe, it was even called the British disease. And it was Margaret Thatcher, who was called the Iron Lady, who cured this disease. Thatcher reformed the public sector and carried out restructuring throughout the economy. When the union rose up against this, she put public power in and pushed it mercilessly. Thanks to these policies, they achieved great results in overcoming the British disease and growing the economy, but the side effects were not formidable. That's why her evaluation of her coping is still at odds. In the book, Professor Samyong Jang presented the causes of British disease, the process of overcoming it, and various side effects that are currently appearing in British society and ways to solve them. From Grave to Cradle caused a sensation in the UK, and was later published in the US, Europe, and Korea. When Professor Jang Samyong said that he would return to Korea, he held on to it until he offered a tenure professorship at Cambridge. However, in the end he took up a professorship at a university in Korea, and while teaching students he is actively working as an economist, writing dissertations and publishing books to analyze problems in the Korean economy and find solutions. When she arrived at her destination, Taekyu asked as if thinking of something. You don't know yet if it's a son or a daughter. I told you not to tell the doctor. It's no fun if you know early. Which one do you like better? Both are fine. Even Henry said without asking. I'm all right. We arrived at the Seosong Economic Research Institute in Gwangwon. Several people were already gathered in the conference room. Chairman Im Jin-yong, who arrived first, greeted us and introduced the people. This is Director Kim Dae-young. Director Kim Dae-young greeted him. Nice to meet you, CEO Kang Jin-hoo. I always begged the president that I wanted to meet you once, but I finally got to meet him today. Hello, Chief. I heard a lot. As an outstanding scholar, he was also in charge of analyzing the Asian Market Investment Plan. Chairman Im Jin-yong congratulated Henry and Hyunju's older sister. After a while, Professor Haman Kim, who developed the OTK battery, arrived, followed by Professor Myung-jun Kim and Professor Semyong Jang. Professor Jang Samyong wore his glasses and had the appearance of a typical scholar with his hair neatly cut. He was actually in his early 50s, but apparently he appeared to be in his late 40s. He shook hands and laughed playfully. It's nice to see CO Kong Jinhu with a great reputation here. Ever since I was a student, I have heard the professor's reputation with a keen ear. I've read almost all the books you've written. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Hyunju Nuna greeted me warmly. Hello, Professor. I haven't seen you in a long time. Professor Jang Samyung opened his eyes wide and was happy. Who is this? Oh, Hyunju. How have you been? Hyunju's older sister smiled. Yes. I should have found you earlier, but I'm sorry I'm late. No. If you're busy, it might be. A student in my department will become the Golden Gate Korea branch manager. Do you know how much I boasted to other professors that I was my student? Professor Myung-jun Kim muttered to himself with a gloomy expression on his face. Well, my disciple is the CEO of OTK Company, the greatest investor of the 21st century, and the hero who saved America from a catastrophe. Please stop. I also saw the news that she was pregnant. Congratulations. Maybe this one? I turned to Henry next to Professor Jang Samyung's gaze. I wondered what Hyunju Nuna would introduce. Are you trying to call me the child's father or cohabitation? Henry also looked like he was expecting something. Hyunju Nuna said comfortably. Yes. This will be my husband. Henry's expression brightened with those words. He spoke in Korean. Nice to meet you. This is Henry. It is an honor to meet you, Professor. After saying goodbye, we each sat down. I sought the opinion of Professor Samyung Jang on the situation in Korea's manufacturing industry. Before coming here, I sent the industrial complex plan by email, so you probably have been reviewing. A normal person might have been nervous and trembling, but he had an expression that said nothing was wrong. After all, I've attended and lectured at conferences where world-class economists gather, so it wouldn't be so awkward to have a place like this. If I could sum up the current problem of the Korean economy in one word, it is polarization. The polarization represented by large companies and small and medium-sized enterprises, regular and non-regular workers, and metropolitan areas and rural areas is severe. This problem must be addressed in order for the economy to continue to grow. What is important in the economy is profit, not justification. Many economists argue that we need to increase the middle class and reduce polarization and income inequality, not because it is right but because it is beneficial. When polarization deepens, social unrest increases, costs occur and economic growth declines. Conversely, as the middle class increases, consumption and savings increase. This is also the reason why most countries are aiming for a welfare state. Chairman Im Jin-yong asked, is the solution a solidarity wage system? The basic concept of the solidarity wage system is equal pay for equal work. This is not something that Professor Jang Samyung first brought up, but it has been discussed among various experts for a long time. The country that has done this is Sweden. Sweden, like all European countries, suffered from severe chaos and economic crisis after World War II. At this time, Tage Erlander, who assumed the post of Prime Minister, proposed equal pay for equal work, and reached an agreement between the tripartite parties through long dialogue and persuasion. Equal pay for equal work means to be paid equal wages for equal work. In this way, the profits of industries with high productivity will increase, but companies and industries with low productivity will automatically collapse because they cannot afford wages, and a large number of unemployment occurs. For this reason, various welfare policies were implemented at the same time. Through this, workers who were dismissed from low-productivity jobs received vocational training and were re-employed in high-productivity companies. Thanks to this, Swedish manufacturing was still able to survive competition from the United States, Japan and Germany. As in Sweden, the solidarity wage system can only be supported by the system of society as a whole. Therefore, it is unreasonable to apply it to Korea right now. However, within an industrial complex, it is fully feasible. And if we succeed, we can gradually expand to other places. The difference was about 20% to say the least. But now double is the standard, and in severe cases, it is tripled or quadrupled. If various welfare benefits are included here, the gap becomes much larger. In particular, in the case of automobiles, the jobs of large corporations and SMEs factories are generally similar. Nevertheless, the reason the wage gap continues to widen is that large corporations monopolize most of the profits. The bargaining power of individual firms is, of course, superior to large firms. The larger the conglomerate, the greater the bargaining power, so the share of SMEs continues to decrease. In the end, if this is left as it is, the wage gap will inevitably widen in the future. The solidarity wage means that the money earned by a company is evenly distributed between the prime contractor and the subcontractor according to a certain ratio and principle. In this way, there is no need for the main office to put pressure on the unit price, and workers don't care whether they work for a large company or a small company. The pay you get is the same anyway. Assume that there are a large company as a principal contractor, a small and medium-sized company as a subcontractor, and a non-regular worker. Based on Yunsung's car, they receive 95 million won Yunsung's, 45 million won primary supplier, and 25 million won in-house non-regular worker and tertiary supplier, respectively. In the end, it can be said that the wages received by the silver sex worker took the share of the other workers. The solidarity wage system aims to reduce the gap as much as possible to 60 million won, 50 million won, and 45 million won by linking their wages. In this way, large enterprises can reduce strikes by individual unions and obtain the effective coexistence with subcontractors, while SMEs can secure competitiveness and develop their own technologies. And this, in turn, leads to improved productivity. It is good that a company is guaranteed a fair wage and stable operation, and it is good that workers can get a good job. It is good that the state can collect corporate tax, and local governments are good that the local economy is revitalized by increasing jobs. So who the hell hates this good thing? Of course, these are workers who are already members of the unions of large corporations. They don't want to have regular workers doing similar jobs for lower wages. In a nutshell, since you receive 100 million won, the company should not hire you with an amount less than that. It doesn't matter how much you receive for non-regular workers and subcontractors. For this reason, even though the discussion has been around for a long time, the discussion has not progressed even one step due to opposition from the union. So who can do this? Those who have the capital and technology to invest in Korea, but are free from the influence of existing labor unions as much as possible, can do this. That's me. OTK company does not have a factory in Korea, and there are only a few dozen directly hired employees. Director Kim Dae-young said. If you ask Eun Sung-cha to participate, there is a high probability that the union will rise up. Neither will the two major labor unions stand still. Chairman Im Jin-young looked at me and said, I will eat a lot of cursing. Of course, the arrows of criticism will be poured on the OTK company leading the project. Taekyu patted my shoulder and said, It's okay. It doesn't happen in a day or two for him to curse. I'm used to it now and it won't matter. Is not it? Oh, I'm hurt too.